Welcome back. Goblin Chess is APGAINS for another episode of APGAINS, but I'm not here where it's APGAINS, but it looks like I'm here, but this was pre-recorded, so I'm not actually here. Best place for you guys to become better Heroes of Middle-earth players, get all the best information, talk the most shit. Patreon, Discord. Join the Patreon. Automatically connects to the Discord. We're building a big and beautiful and very intelligent and quite sexy, if I'm being honest, Heroes of Middle-earth community over there, so great place to be. Dwarves. So as of the time of recording this, we had the dwarf announcement a few days ago for his leadership of Bilfer or whatever. Very lackluster. I'm going to say this right now. Assuming that Heroes of Middle-earth follows a Galaxy of Heroes trajectory, which it likely will unless they shut it down, the dwarf faction is going to be gigantic, and I wouldn't put too much stock in the fact that Biffer's lead looks kind of dog shit. Let's be honest, everything in the game right now sucks, but it's relative, so if everything sucks, nothing really sucks. The dwarves are not that good. I wouldn't invest too much in them. I think long-term, saying don't invest in dwarves isn't going to make sense, because if you watch this like 3 years from now, I'm sure there's like 4 different fully fledged out dwarf teams that are all GAC viable and dominating PvP and stuff like that. So future APGAINS or future viewers just know that obviously I don't have any knowledge of any of that to come in the next couple of years. But right now, I do not think that the dwarves are something that you should really focus on. I think Gimli is the exception, but that's not because he's a dwarf. It's because he's likely going to be flexed into the fellowship once we kind of progress more and more into the raid, and Gandalf shards are starting to accumulate. And I imagine there'll be like a retag of Frodo and Strider to be Aragorn and Frodo, or there'll be new marquees for those characters, or whatever happens. I think Gimli's kind of out. I think the main thing is, like, once Thorin kind of comes to the game eventually as a legendary or otherwise, I think that's kind of when the dwarves... Whoa, I'm lagging. That's kind of when the dwarves become important. Same thing with Haradrim for Witch King, if that ever happens, and the elves who kind of suck dick for Elrond, who makes them great. I imagine you'll need 5-star dwarves to get Thorin. He'll plug in, he'll have like Thorin's company, and then the 6th dwarf Gimli will bump over to the to the fellowship team, and you'll kind of have 2 separate squads there. So I don't know if, because they went elf month, elves get a legendary, Haradrim month, Haradrim it remains to be seen whether or not they're going to get a legendary in the Witch King, but they could. If we do follow the same trajectory, assuming that the Haradrim do get a legendary and we bump over to dwarves a little bit more, I could imagine a Thorin kind of legendary event coming out and me eating my words. I like to plan for what's there, and then very frequently I know in advance of what's happening, and I'll plan for what's to come, but usually that happens if there's like leaks and stuff like that. There doesn't seem to be a beta program of any kind. I'm going to drink some water, sorry. There doesn't seem to be a beta program of any kind right now, so the likelihood of leaks is incredibly low. So we're kind of just stuck with preparing for what we have. So I think long-term, I'm fine with a dwarf farm, simply because long-term you're going to have to farm everything, so it's kind of like a pussy cop-out kind of BS answer. But for right now, I would infinitely more prefer you open with elves and Rohan into Haradrim, worry about dwarves when they get a little bit more advanced, grind some Gimli passively in 3 months once he becomes free-to-play farmable, progress him for a Gandalf team, and kind of just put the dwarves in the back of your mind. They're 1 character away from being good. Every faction in the game is 1 character away from being good, as Elrond so miraculously pointed out. So, I mean, I hate to say it, but that's just kind of what this game is right now, is like, you could quite literally farm anything and it could become meta the next day. Like, you could farm the fucking goblins and they could get a new 6th goblin that really revitalizes the team. You could farm, you could farm Dunland and they could get 2 new Dunland marquee characters, a leadership who's really strong, and they could just absolutely bust you a new one. So I hate to say, like, don't farm something, But right now, I honestly, it's not one of the teams that I have on my radar, more so than any of the other teams, obviously. So, yeah, don't farm your dwarves. But then when they announce Thorin in 2 weeks, while I'm gone and I look like an idiot, you can come back here and say, APGAINS, you fucking idiot. You told me to farm dwarves. That's just the way it goes. Bye-bye.